Hi everybody. We are going to start at 12 o'clock, but I went ahead and started just a little bit early so that people would know that we were here. If you have questions for us, go ahead and be putting them in our chat box there. We thought that we were going to be able to do a dual presentation between Kevin, Rose, and myself, but Facebook has changed the way that they do things, and that's not something that we can do right now. So I'm going to be doing most of the discussion. I'll be the one that you'll see and showing you some stuff, but Kevin will be helping me to answer questions. So if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat box there. So we're just going to hang out while people come on and everything.
Wash his hands, clean his hands off. Okay, there you go. Grab your tablet.
Sorry, my kids are up here right now. They're fixing to head out, but that's who you hear in the background. That's one of those things about working at home, is that you have your kids with you, and sometimes they make a lot of noise. So I see we've gotten a few more people to join. We are going to start right at 12 o'clock with this. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat box, the comment text, and that way we'll be able to try to answer them. Kevin Rose is going to be answering most of the questions in the chat box, or he's going to try to. Whenever we set this up, we were under the impression that we were going to be able to do a dual presentation where we can both talk to our audience, and we found out yesterday that that's not the way that it is. So I'll be hosting today and showing things, and Kevin's going to be answering those questions. And again, we'll start at 12 o'clock, and if you have any questions, be sure to put them into the comment box. All right, it is 12 o'clock. We are going to go ahead and start our Facebook Live. If you have questions, be sure to come. We thought we were going to be able to do a dual presentation, but we are not able to do that today. So I'm going to be leading it on this end, and Kevin's going to be answering in the chat box. My name is Darby Allday, and I'm one of the agents at the Extension Office. And we are trying to do a little education here on household chemicals. With COVID-19 going on, we have a lot of people that are staying at home, and we've got more people that are interested in pesticides. They're doing gardening, and they want to know what they can use. So if you have any questions, be sure to put them in the chat box there or the comment box, and we'll try to answer them as we go along. I'm going to give you a couple of facts, some of the reasons why we thought this was an important topic. Suburban lawns and gardens receive more pesticide applications per acre than agricultural practices or areas. And there are more than 90 million pounds of herbicides that are applied to lawn and gardens every year. That's a lot of chemicals that are going out into our yards and into our gardens. And according to the World Health Organization, there are over 25 million people that are poisoned with pesticides worldwide each year. The World Health Organization also documented that over 220,000 deaths occur each year due to pesticides. So it has a lot of things that pesticides can do that can cause us trouble, and so we want to help you to limit your exposure to the pesticides if you decide to use them. In 2019, there was over 92,000 cases of pesticide exposures that were reported, and that ranks 10th out of all substances that were reported. And almost 42,000 of those that were reported were in children under the age of 5. And 3 children under the age of 5 died as a result of the pesticides. So if you've got kids at home, you need to know these things, and you need to know how to handle them safely. The other 42,000 were reported for adults that were over 20 years of age and older. And so when we talk about pesticides, you may just think, oh, well, that's just the stuff that's used outside. But it's not. Some of the household products that are pesticides are like your cockroach sprays and baits, your insect sprays and your wasp repellents, your insect repellents, like the DEET that you use, the OFF. That isn't a pesticide. If you have a termite control product that is used around your home, that's a pesticide. Rat and other rodent poisons are pesticides. Flea and tick sprays, powders, pet collars, they all have pesticides in them. Your kitchen, your laundry, your bath disinfectants and sanitizers, including bleach, are considered pesticides. Products that killed mold and mildew are pesticides. Lawn and garden products such as weed killers or insect killers. Your swimming pool chemicals that kill algae, they're considered pesticides. And any repellents that you use to keep the deers, the skunks, the raccoons, the rabbits away from your garden, they're considered pesticides. So we're going to talk a little bit today about what you look for whenever you have your pesticides here. And one of the things that the EPA has done is they have 8 things that they require manufacturers to put onto their label. The very first thing that they tell you that they make them put on there is the EPA number. This doesn't mean that the EPA finds that the chemical is safe or anything. It just means that they have looked at it and they know what's in it, and they have seen what the label is. And so you'll find the EPA label on there. And I'm trying to figure out exactly where to put this so that you can see it. But on this one, it's down here at the very bottom. It's got the EPA number on there. It'll also tell you what your active ingredient is. So our active ingredient on this one is right here, where you can see that it says active ingredient. It'll also have a signal word on there, and our signal word on this one is warning, but there's 3 signal words that they'll use. They'll use caution, warning, and danger. And caution is the least dangerous to somebody when they're using it. Warning is the next step up, and dangerous is the most dangerous of all the chemicals that when you're using them. So if you have questions as I'm talking about something, if you don't understand something, or you can't see something, or you have a question, just let us know. Type it in there. We will be putting some information out on our Facebook page after this, giving you some links to pages that you can go and find some more information on this. It also has precautionary statements on there, and sometimes you have to look around it, but usually the precautionary statements are on the very back. So this one has the precautionary statement right here, and this tells you what you need to wear whenever you're spraying your chemical. They may just tell you to wear protective clothing and gloves when you're mixing, and that may be all. Or they may tell you that you need to have rubber boots on, rubber gloves. They may tell you that you need to have a respirator whenever you're spraying it. And this is a respirator that has cartridges on the sides that you can use. If you're going to use these, though, you need to make sure that your cartridge is labeled for the type of product that you are using. And it should tell you on there what type of filter that you need whenever you're spraying those, because some of them are very volatile and you don't want to breathe them in because they're very harmful to your lungs. It may tell you that you need to wear protective goggles or a face shield. This is one type of goggle that you can use, and this one has like the vents that are on the sides there. There's a couple of different types that you can use, but this helps to keep it from splashing in your eyes. It may tell you to wear gloves. You can use like these type gloves, and these are longer, so they cover more of your wrist. The most exposed areas that people tend to get the most exposure from are their hands and right here at their wrist, because they don't have it covered up. Some people may use like the nitrile gloves here. Well, these only come to the edge of your wrist there, and they may not be the best for what you're doing. But you don't want to use leather gloves, because leather gloves will absorb the chemicals in there, and they'll come back. Like if you take them off and you put your hands on them, then you're touching that chemical again, and so it's hard to get any chemicals out of leather once you've gotten it in there. So you want to use the rubber gloves there whenever you're doing that. It may tell you to wear long sleeves and long pants, because a lot of times it'll tell you, not to walk back into it, and you don't want any of your body exposed more than necessary to the chemicals. It'll tell you what your environmental hazards are to your environment. It'll tell you if it is dangerous to fish or to animals, to kids. It'll give you your directions for use on here, and it will tell you how to use it. And sometimes you have to kind of hunt for those, but it'll tell you how to use it and how much to use, and it'll tell you what it's used for, what kind of, if it's a fungicide, if it's an insecticide, or whatever it is used for, it will put it on there. It'll also give you first aid instructions on there, and that's important. So in case if you get it in your eyes, or if somebody is accidentally poisoned with this, then you need to know this information, and you need to keep your label and keep the bottles that it comes in, so that if you have to make that call, you have the information to give to the people that you call and talk to and say, hey, this has happened, so that you can correctly identify what the product is. And then it will also tell you how to store this and to dispose of it. You don't want to take your chemical and pour it down your drain, because we don't want it into our water systems. It'll tell you how to correctly take your fungicide or your pesticide there and dispose of it. In Giles County, a lot of times at the centers that we have, they have days where they will take the pesticides, and you can go and get rid of them there. One of the things that you don't ever want to do is you don't ever want to take your pesticide and to put it into a soft drink container or something else that kids are used to being able to open up and just drink from, because you could get an accidental poisoning that away, and you want to keep the label with it. And some of these, we have different types of chemicals that you can go and buy, and we're not promoting any kind of one brand over another or anything. It's the active ingredient is what we will recommend. And so I've got several different types here. So the one that I was showing you the label on, this is a concentrate, and so I have to measure it. This one actually has a little measuring cup that comes with it that I can use. But if you don't have one of these types of measuring cups, and you use your typical teaspoon, tablespoon, ounce cup measure, you don't ever want to use that inside for food prep ever. It is going to be strictly a pesticide only measuring from that point on. You may find some pesticides that have a nozzle on them to where you hook them to your garden hose, and it will meter it out the way that it's supposed to, so you don't have to do really any mixing. You just put the hose on there and you go to spraying on that. And these can come in like weed and grass killers. They can come in insect sprays, and there's lots of different companies that make these. Again, it's the active ingredient that we will be recommending on this. You can get some ready-to-use products that are already in a spray container, and all you do is you read what it tells you to do and you follow the instructions on that. We also have some on these that are granular, and so this one is one that you just go out and you sprinkle on that. Even organic chemicals can or have all of these instructions on there, because even organic chemicals are pesticides and have issues with them. So just because it's organic doesn't necessarily make it better than anything else on there. So this one was an organic weed preventer there. And we were talking about what they were called, or in terms of danger or whatever. Bleach has danger. It's the one, so it's the most corrosive, it's the one that's going to do the most damage on that. This one that I was showing you has warning on it. And then the vegetable spray that I had out here a while ago, it says caution. So it's going to be the least harmful. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't cause harm if it's not used correctly. The other thing that you need to do is you need to make sure that you follow the directions as they are written on there. A lot of times we think, well, if a little bit is good, a lot is great. And that is not the case a lot of times. And you can cause a lot of issues if you don't follow the directions. And we've had a lot of chemicals that have been taken off the market because people failed to use the product the way that it was labeled to be used. And we won't ever recommend going off label, is what we call it, whenever you do something that the label says isn't something that you're supposed to do. And then you also want to read on there, because it'll tell you if you can mix it with another chemical or if you cannot. That's kind of like you don't want to mix bleach and ammonia, because it creates a gas that's very harmful to you, and that's something that we don't want to do. So you never go off label, and you want to make sure that you know what you can and cannot do with these pesticides. Another thing that you don't want to do whenever you are working with the pesticides, you don't want to smoke, you don't want to eat or drink while you're doing that, because you do not want to ingest any of that. And if you have it in your hands or on your hands, then you may expose yourself to chemicals that you didn't really mean to. And only apply what you need, and on some of these chemicals here, these pesticides, it'll say use enough water to cover the area that you're going to cover. Or it'll say use enough water to cover a 200 square foot area. And you're like, well, how do I do that? Well, that's where you have to kind of calibrate your sprayer. You have to kind of know your area. So a 200 square foot area would be like a 10 foot by 20 foot area. And you would take your sprayer and you would spray it with water, and you would see how much water it took for you to cover that. And then that's how much water you would need to mix with that chemical, because that's how much it would put out for that area there. And again, going off label is against the law. And so if you go off label and something happens to somebody, there's a lot of consequences. And there was 2 little girls in Utah that ended up dying because their family had a company that came out and they had some rodents that they were trying to get rid of, and the guy put the pesticide too close to the house and the fumes came in. They thought at first that it was maybe carbon monoxide, and the girls went back home after that, and then the next day they lied and they died, and they found out that it was because the person that was applying them didn't do it correctly. He put it too close to the house, and the fumes actually came into the girls' room, and they ended up passing away because of that. Also, using the pesticide off-label means that if you don't wear the correct protective gear, if it tells you to wear rubber gloves and rubber boots and goggles and the respirators and you don't do that, then you've gone off of the label on that. It's also against the law if it tells you to use 1 teaspoon and you decide to use a whole ounce to spray for whatever, that is off label. With a lot of our outside chemicals that we're using, we have a lot of people that are very concerned with bees and how it affects them. There is the University of California has an IPM bee precaution ratings, and you can actually go in there and type in what your active ingredient is, and it'll tell you how harmful it is against or to bees. But sometimes they'll have things that are labeled for use in California that's not labeled for use in Tennessee. So that's something else. Whenever you're using some chemicals, you need to make sure that it's labeled for the area that you are going to spray with it. And that's kind of all that I have as far as those goes. If y'all have some questions or want some more information, please put it in the chat box there. We just want you to be safe, and we want you to know what you can expect on these labels, and you'll find them. And sometimes they're easy to find, and then sometimes they're not. Yeah, most of them, they'll have a pull open label here, so you'll have to pull it open so that you can read all of that. But within it, you should have all of those 8 sections covered that we talked about. The EPA number, the ingredient statement, the signal words, the precautionary statements, the environmental hazards, the directions for the use of them, the first aid instructions, and the way to store and dispose of the chemicals. So do we have any questions? Again, we will be putting on our Facebook page some links to resources that will recommend chemicals that you can use for your yard or for your insect issues, if it's on ornamentals or if it's in the garden. We do not recommend a certain company. Ours is the recommendation on the active ingredient that's in there. All right. Well, I am not seeing any more comments or anything. So I guess with that, we will be signing off. Thanks for joining us.